They called me the Vance, a force of nature. So I didn't just own the skyline. I was the skyline. My company, Vance Industries, was my kingdom, and my word was law. I demanded perfection, and I crushed weakness. So when I saw my timid secretary, Elara Hayes, crying at her desk, my first instinct was disgust, weakness. I was about to fire her on the spot. Instead, I said 5 words that would unravel my entire world and expose the pathetic, hollow man I had truly become. Intro call to action. This is a story about how the weakest person I knew became the only one strong enough to save me. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you believe that everyone deserves a second chance. Now let's begin. My name is Julian Vance, and for 34 years I lived a life forged in steel and ice. I wasn't raised. I was forged. My father, a man who saw emotion as a genetic defect, taught me one simple rule: control or be controlled. When I inherited Vance Industries, I didn't just take his chair. I amplified his cruelty. My penthouse office on the 80th floor wasn't just a workspace. It was my fortress, a glass box from which I looked down on the world. I treated my employees like components in a machine. If a part squeaked, you oiled it. If it broke, you replaced it. I knew their output, but I never knew their names. My personal life was no different. I was engaged to Isabella Croft, a woman from another corporate dynasty. Our engagement wasn't a romance. It was a merger, a consolidation of power. We were a perfect match on paper, 2 beautifully crafted sculptures with nothing inside. I had everything a man could ever want: a billion-dollar empire, a flawless reputation for ruthlessness, and a hollowness in my chest so vast it echoed with every beat of my heart. I was the king of a cold, empty world. It all fractured on a rainy Monday. A $500 million acquisition was collapsing because of a legal loophole I should have seen. I was vibrating with rage, ready to find someone, anyone, to blame. I burst out of my office, a storm in a $1,000 suit, ready to fire the entire floor. And then I saw her, Elara Hayes, my secretary, the one everyone called Mouse. She was sitting at her desk, trying to hide her face, but I could see the tremor in her shoulders. She was crying. Not loudly, but in that silent, gut-wrenching way that was almost worse. My first thought was rage. How dare she display this pathetic weakness in my company, on my floor? I stalked over to her desk, my shadow falling over her. The entire office went silent. "Clean yourself up," I sneered, my voice dripping with contempt. "Vance Industries doesn't pay for tears." She flinched, but then she looked up. Her eyes were red, but for the first time there was no fear in them, just a profound, bottomless sadness. "I'm sorry, Mr. Vance," she whispered, her voice thick. "My mother's hospital just called. The treatment, it isn't working." I expected to feel nothing. I expected to feel annoyed. Instead, for the first time in my life, I felt silence. I didn't have a response. I just stood there, the king of the world, completely disarmed by a single broken whisper. I expected Elara to be gone the next day. She wasn't. She was at her desk at 7 a.m. as always, her eyes puffy but her posture professional. But something was broken in me. I couldn't get her out of my head. I found myself watching her on the security monitors. I noticed things I never had before. How she was the only one who knew the janitor's name. How she'd leave half of her own simple lunch for a struggling intern. She was a quiet thread of kindness in the brutal machine I had built. This quiet dignity was a foreign language I couldn't understand. It was a weakness, so why did it feel so strong? I felt the need to control the situation. To fix this distraction, I called her into my office. I didn't offer condolences. I offered a transaction. "I'm authorizing a discretionary bonus of $50,000, I said, sliding a check across my desk. "For your troubles." She looked at the check, then at me. "Mr. Vance, I appreciate this, but I can't accept it. I haven't earned it." I was stunned. I leaned forward. "This is not a negotiation, Miss Hayes. Take the money. Everyone has a price." She met my gaze, and the timid woman was gone. "No, Mr. Vance, not everyone." She gently pushed the check back and left my office. I sat there staring at the check. I could buy buildings. I could buy companies. I could buy people. But this simple, timid woman had just built a fortress my money couldn't breach. It was infuriating. And terrifyingly, it was captivating. The breaking point came during the quarterly review, in the main boardroom. I was on edge. The failed acquisition was still costing me, and my engagement to Isabella was feeling more like a prison sentence. And then Elara made a mistake. A simple typo in the presentation. The numbers were off by a decimal point. It was minor. It was meaningless. But to me it was an imperfection. It was a crack. In front of 30 executives, I snapped. "Is this a joke, Miss Hayes?" I roared, slamming my hand on the table. The room went ice cold. "Are you incompetent or just stupid?" "A decimal point. Do you have any idea what a single decimal point means at this level?" I saw her face pale. I saw the humiliation register. I saw every eye in the room on her. I expected her to cry. I wanted her to cry. She didn't. She just stood still, absorbing the impact. "It was a mistake, sir." "I'll fix it." "A mistake?" I laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "A mistake like this costs millions. You're a liability." Then she did the unthinkable. She calmly set the tablet down on the table. "You're right, Mr. Vance, it was a mistake." Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a razor. "My mistake was thinking you were anything other than a bully. My mistake was thinking that the man who runs this company had even a single shred of humanity." A collective gasp. No one had ever spoken to me like that. "You think your money makes you a man," she continued, stepping away from the table. "It just makes you an emptier version of your father." She turned, and with more dignity than I had ever possessed in my life, Elara Hayes walked out of the boardroom. The silence she left behind was louder than my shouting. I didn't follow her. I couldn't move. I sat at the head of the table, the king in his castle, completely checkmated by a pawn. The meeting was over. Everyone filed out, refusing to make eye contact with me. "Emptier version of your father," her words echoed. They were the one truth I had spent my entire life running from. That night, I didn't go to the gala with Isabella. I went to my sterile, empty mansion. I poured a glass of whiskey I couldn't taste and looked at my reflection in the dark, floor-to-ceiling windows. I saw the monster they all saw. A cold, scared boy playing at being a king. Elara hadn't just insulted me. She had held up a mirror, and I hated the man looking back. I had built an empire of glass and steel, but I had no foundation. I had stock, but no value. I realized my entire life was a transaction I was losing. I picked up the phone and called Isabella. "The wedding is off," I said, my voice rough. Us, it's not real." "None of it is." She was furious, of course. She screamed about contracts and families. I just hung up. I had lost my fiancé, my reputation, and my best secretary all in one day. And for the first time in my entire miserable life, I felt human. I knew I had to tear down everything I was and start over. Change isn't a lightning bolt. It's quiet. It's painful. I returned to the office 2 days later, a different man. I started with an email to the entire staff, apologizing for my behavior in the boardroom. I started learning names. I started listening, but my biggest debt was to Elara. She hadn't returned. I investigated her mother's condition. The file said terminal. The insurance was running out. The old Julian would have sent a check. A transaction. The new Julian made a call. I called Dr. Eris, the top oncologist in the country, a man who owed me a favor. I didn't ask, I begged. I pulled every string I had and got her mother a spot in a revolutionary new clinical trial. I paid for all of it. The transport, the private room, the treatment, anonymously. But Elara found out. She came to my office weeks later. She looked different, stronger. "Why?" she asked, her voice raw. "Because," I said, standing up but not moving from behind my desk. "You were the only person who ever told me the truth. And your mother deserves to see her daughter happy." She didn't thank me. She just watched me, as if seeing me for the first time. "The trial is working," she whispered. "Good," I said. "There's a new position open. Head of operations. It's yours if you want it. You've proven you're the only one brave enough to handle this place." "Including me." 6 months passed. Vance Industries was unrecognizable. The atmosphere wasn't fear. It was energy. Elara's mother was in remission. Elara herself had returned, not as my secretary, but as the new head of operations, and she was ruthless, with inefficiency but brilliant with people. Our relationship was professional, quiet, built on a new unspoken respect, but the final piece was missing. I called an all-hands meeting for the entire company. The auditorium was buzzing. No one knew what it was about. I walked on stage alone. For 30 years, I began, my voice amplified by the microphone. This company was built on one principle: profit at all costs. It was built on fear. My fear. We were successful, but we were not good. I looked out at the sea of faces. Today that ends. I paused, taking a deep breath. Effective immediately, I'm announcing the creation of the Hayes Foundation, funded with 30% of my personal shares in this company, dedicated to providing top-tier medical care for the families of all our employees, from the janitors to the executives. The room was stunned into absolute silence. My COO looked like he was going to faint, and I continued, my voice cracking just slightly. I am announcing a new company-wide profit-sharing plan. From now on, we succeed together. People were gasping. Some began to cry. This foundation, I said, looking for her in the crowd, needs to be run by someone who understands that strength isn't about power. It's about compassion. It will be run by the one person who taught me that. Miss Elara Hayes. I found her in the front row. I walked off the stage and held out my hand. She took it, tears streaming down her face. The entire company rose to their feet, not for me, but for her. The applause was deafening. That was the moment. It wasn't about me saving her. It was about her saving all of us. True wealth isn't in a bank account. It's in the lives you touch and the person you become. Julian learned that the hard way. Elara taught him that kindness is the greatest investment and that true strength is daring to be vulnerable. It took seeing his timid secretary cry to finally open his own eyes. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to change.